To the sounds of the sidewalk.
So singer, songwriter, and guitarist Steph Johnson is a beautiful artist and who's been recording and working in Southern California. She blends jazz, soul, funk, and blues. If you were in time, you would have heard her singing just at the beginning. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And she recently has released a new album called So in Love of Jazz Standards, which we will also get into. But today's topic really involves her work and the creation of an amazing ensemble in San Diego called Her Voice the City Choir, which specializes in giving voice to the unsheltered, not voice and singing for them, but to those people sharing their own voices. A beautiful project. Stephanie, it's great to have you here today. Thank you for being with us.
I am so honored, and I love Oregon, and I used to live in Eugene, Oregon for a short period of my life, and it was so beautiful. So I'm imagining all the beautiful gray, rainy skies and everything outside. It was sunny here. We're having some sun here today.
Well, we expect a little sun in Southern California. We believe the lack of sun builds character in the Northwest. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. You know, you mentioned that you had spent a little time in Oregon, and that wasn't something that I knew until we chatted on Thursday. And did you do some education in Oregon, or what was your time spent here?
I'm sorry, I got a call just as you were
Oh,
asking me that, but you were saying, what was my time in Oregon? What was that?
yeah, yeah. What was your time
So
like when you were in
I,
Oregon?
I followed a boyfriend, and he was going to college, and I signed up to go to school up there. It didn't work out with the boyfriend, but while I was there, I went to Lane Community College and did like some just general classes, and then I worked at Umpqua Bank. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Umpqua, yeah. So I have a banking background. That's not baking, not making cakes, but banking, and that always was something I could lean on while I was learning how to play music. I didn't start playing music till I was about 20, 21 years old.
Wow, that to me is such an amazing thing. So I want to reiterate, as you came into the Zoom session, you heard that beautiful voice, that soulful low sound. That is a voice that didn't start studying music until the 20s. Did you have some musical experiences before that, like maybe
Definitely.
in school? Yeah,
Definitely. Well, my whole family's pretty musical. My mother sang, she did all these odd end gigs. She used to host karaoke back in like the 80s and the 90s when that was like a big deal.
nice.
But she also was in like some of the first like music videos on MTV, this weird video. And she just always had odd end singing jobs, like random weird singing jobs. And my dad was more of a folk guy. He loved John Prine and James Taylor. And so I got like a whole Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder upbringing with my mom's side, which I thought everybody sounded like Aretha. I thought everybody, because I just heard soul music all the time. So I just thought everyone sounded like that. And it wasn't until I hang with my
Hmm.
dad and I hear a different style. But and then around my 20s, I started to teach myself guitar. I did a couple open mics and I just really wanted to sing, and I just pushed myself out there. And actually, for the first time I had a guitar in my hand, I got lost in like hours and hours of playing and
Wow.
trying to play the rhythm on my hands. I was playing like a bossa groove and trying to sing at the same time. And 8 or 10 hours passed by like that. And I was like, whoa, like maybe I
Wow.
like this. So then I just started to pour myself into it.
Well, that's incredible. So you built up this bank of sounds in your head, and but for whatever reason, it didn't catch fire until a little later.
Yeah, no, I think I always wanted to. I tried and attempted to learn lots of instruments in school, but actually, we moved around a lot. My mother's disabled, so we just didn't have a consistent home life. So to really see that progress with an instrument, right? Everybody's probably like, "Yes, you need to like put that time in,"
That's
and
right.
so I didn't do that. So I thought I wasn't a good musician or a good singer, and so I just gave up. Actually, I just stopped. And
So is much of your work then in the 20s, was it self-taught, or did you do some formal
yeah,
study, or
yeah, a lot of it was self-taught, and then different guitar players that I really admired would every once in a while they'd open a door and say, sure, come in and you can study with me. And so I'd
Wow.
learn from some, from blues guitar to jazz guitar to Latin jazz, stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, so that's, that I just find that remarkable because I mean your musicianship is just incredible in the way and I think your feel for the jazz, it's it just must be in your heart and your soul.
It is. It really is. In fact, right now there's a concert going on in my front yard. My husband, Rob Thorson, is playing with Holly Hoffman, a flautist, a really great flute player, and Tommy Arrows on percussion. I don't know if you can hear it.
So you're married to a musician. Well, I'll ask you more about that later,
Okay.
and because I think that's always very fun. Well, I thought what we might do is give people an introduction to
Sure.
this wonderful choir of the and I'll let you set it up. But this is the Golden Buzzer clip with songs of the sidewalk.
Hopeful eyes searching, restless arms reaching.
Wow.
Our battles going down with chaos all around. And the mother reassures herself everything will be all right as she steps in rhythm to the sounds of the sidewalk.
So you've seen that a bunch of times, I bet,
But
right?
it always makes me cry.
I know. I've watched it 4 or 5 times, which isn't very many. So there's so much to talk about. Since I didn't let them see the end, tell
Sure.
them what happens after that. I
So
wanted the music and the choir to speak for itself, which is why I ended
cool.
the clip there.
So there's something like 50,000 people audition for this show. And there's about 225 that make it to that round that you just saw. And the goal or the idea is that you get approved by those judges, and then you get to go to the next live round. But there are 5 options to get a golden buzzer. Each judge and the host can give a free pass to the end, basically to the taping at Universal Studios and all that. And so all the judges said their thing, and I remember thinking like, okay, is that it? I was like, are we done? And then all of a sudden Terry Crews, the host, comes off the stage and he's like, hold up, Simon. And he starts walking in the audience. He's one of the sweetest, most care. All the judges are really kind, but he is really something else. He's a really genuine man, very sweet. And he's talking to the audience about, we need to be the change. We need this choir is doing the work. This choir is it. You talk about, he's like, you talk about walking the walk. They are talking, not just talking, but they're walking the walk. And the audience was losing their minds. They're screaming like crazy. It felt like we were on a roller coaster. We didn't know what was happening. I mean, everybody was screaming. And so then he went behind the judges, and then he used his golden buzzer and he slammed the golden buzzer, and the loudest sound goes off on stage. All this gold confetti shot at us from everywhere. My husband was like, did we win? Like, what's happening? Like, he didn't know what was happening. And the choir, I joked that it was every kind of crying on stage. It was every kind of ugly cry you could think of, like tears shooting out of people's faces or people just standing there weeping. I mean, so when I watch it again, I think about all that emotion. I mean, if you could imagine, some of the people on that stage when we went home had to go back to the street, or they were staying in a shelter at the time, or they were just helped into housing, or they were just starting to get their a little momentum in their life. And it was such a boost. It was such a boost for everyone. Yeah.
It's beautiful chaos is what it is.
Yes.
And And you know, all those different ensembles, the buzzer can only be rung 5 times, and so there's so many different directions we can go with our conversation right now. I think I'd like to start with the singers
Cool.
because I think, I mean, there's so many things, you know, I'm interested in, like how the song is workshopped and how you built the choir and your idea. But let's talk about the people. I mean, for example, what did that moment mean for them? I don't think we can understand this.
Well, Patricia, who does the spoken word, she wrote that poetry. She wrote that.
Mm.
She's an incredible, incredible poet, incredible writer. And before we met Patricia, she was living under a bridge in downtown San Diego. And when I started the choir with my friend Nina Deering and some other friends, when I started to go out and do this outreach, at the time, the city, or San Diego, was investing in measures like putting in jagged rocks where people slept. Like that's where they put their money, was to install jagged rocks. And that's where Patricia was sleeping. She was sleeping under the bridge at that time when that all happened. Then she got into some shelter situations and was living somewhere that wasn't ideal. I mean, we need hours and hours to talk about all of the journey of what a person has to go through to try to kind of get out of that situation and how long it takes. But Patricia, when she says in the intro, people want to hear from me. People want to hear me. It was the first time in her life that that her words had value, that she was told and it was reinforced that you matter and what you're saying matters and your experience, and we see you. That's the kind of dignity, that's the kind of experience, the vibe of the choir is that we call it radical acceptance. Radical acceptance, which is, boy, is that healing just to even say it for all aspects of life, but radically accepting each other and ourselves. So when the little clip that happened after that, she threw herself out of her walker. I mean, she goes on the stage with her walker and she threw herself on the ground. And we actually watched the tape. We watched the episode together afterwards, and she giggled and she just said, I couldn't spend one more moment not thanking God, not thanking the Spirit for this miracle. And she said, I couldn't stand one more second not being on the ground. We feel like we're living in with miracles,
Mhm.
It's to go from unimaginable darkness and isolation and a loss of hope and a loss of family and a loss of nutrition, a loss of health, to have those things come back, and to come back in such a beautiful way, is just, I don't know. There's no word. It's hard to describe. I mean, I get all choked up when I watch it again because it was truly life-changing. We finished that tape and we came back. She said people were opening the door for her. People started at her building. Someone opened the door for her. She said, can you believe that? I said, that's what I'm talking about, Patricia. That's what it's about.
I think the phrase she used was, and if I have this wrong, you probably know. She said, "Who would listen to me? Who would listen to me?" And I mean that idea of being heard, being seen, is something that's so important to all people. And how these singers got so little of that. In fact, when they are seen, always in a negative way, always in terms of fear or maybe disgust or all the negative, and never seen in the positive light. Just awesome.
Somebody asked a question. Can I answer that?
Oh yes, thank you for
Yeah,
seeing it.
yeah. Read the question again. I want to make sure I answer that.
The question I was going to ask is like this one. This is where do you practice and how do you build trust in the group? And what I was going to ask was, how did these people find you, and how did it turn into an ensemble?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I really love people. I mean, I love people. I love good food. I love music, and I love creating space for those magical things to come together. And I started to do various forms of outreach about 7 years ago. And I'm part Mexican, but I look white or whatever. And sometimes I go into the communities, different communities, and they'd be like, they joke with me, they say, who's this white girl? Like, why is she sitting in my tent? Like, who's this girl? That's what they joke with me. And I said, they'd try to get to understand like who I was, and we'd ask each other questions, and then I'd say, well, I play music. And they're like, I play music. And I said, awesome. And so that's how we bonded. That's how we met as creatives. So in the space of being an artist, you can be any age, any socioeconomic background, right? Anything, because the art and the creativity keeps you young and it keeps you creative. You're creative. So we would bond as creatives. And I grew up singing soul music, funk and R&B, and I love jazz. And so we had a lot of repertoire that was the same. So part of that question was, where did you meet? So while I was doing this outreach, I met this pastor, Chris Nafis, who was serving the same community in the downtown area. And he had this like funky makeshift, like a metal warehouse that was called the church. Okay, so it didn't look like a church at all. It was basically like a steel shed. And we would meet at this place. He said, you can come do whatever you want. And I was like, awesome, because I want to start a choir, which was a surprise to me. It was like the words came through me. I didn't know that at the time, but because I kept meeting people and we were talking about music and singing, and they'd be like, oh, I'm writing a book, or I'd meet people that were living without shelter who, just like anybody you meet in life, they have goals and dreams and things to create and things to do. So he said he opened the church, so we started to meet there. So then that was what the outreach, that was what the goal was while I would pass out food. And sometimes I'd pass out hors d'oeuvres. I'd make spanakopita, or I'd make like in a little like napkin, and I'd pass out like a chilled drink and and hors d'oeuvres. They're like, who are you? And I said, we're out of the church down the street. We have a band and we're doing this open choir. Come down, come use the restroom, charge your phone, and stay a while and sing. So people would come in, and there was no like, what's the word? I can't think of it. It's Sunday. I can't think of the word. Anyways, we didn't have an ulterior motive. There wasn't
right.
something. It was just to meet. It was just to hang out. So that's how we built the trust. And that's
Were they
how
suspicious?
Yeah. And that's the biggest piece to this, is when you're building any kind of community, is that, you know, it's welcoming to all, it's a safe space, it's respectful. I mean, if you're touching on those things, and it's joyous and fun, and you've got good food, like I said, and the good music, then it's this whole very unique atmosphere. I mean, that's not really offered a lot to people that are experiencing extreme poverty.
Right.
That's what's unique too about our crew, is that the group is created for people experiencing homelessness. It's created for people that are living way below the poverty line. But then there's people that we've helped. We've helped about 70 individuals move off the street now into housing and or safe shelter. So our choir now looks a little different, right? Now we have a lot more people that are housed, but there's still all these layers to keeping people housed, hopeful, navigating living on a social security check when your rent takes all the check. I mean, that's a discipline every month to try to stay hopeful and positive. So, but then there's another third of the choir that comes and sings with us that are people who maybe have never experienced homelessness, or maybe their son was homeless or something like that, and they just wanted to come and sing and be a part of this movement. So in all the homeless, or I don't know if anybody on this call has involvement in any homeless outreach, or usually you're not seeing people breaking bread together that are
Right.
experiencing, right? So to come into choir, you could be sharing a songbook with somebody who's sleeping on the street and somebody who works like at Qualcomm. You know what I mean? And like there's like something that's happening that's a safe space and it's fun, and they're lifted up, and the people that really want to walk next to or be next to or be a part of a solution and understand it's people with people. It's people to people that's going to help, right? So everybody wins and everybody does better in that environment, but it's pretty unique. I have to say, it's very unique.
So what are rehearsals like? I mean, you kind of said a little bit, but I mean, specifically,
Sure.
what do you do kind of typical choir things? Do you warm them up
Yeah.
at the beginning? Back rubs? I don't know. Like,
Pre-COVID back row.
Well, that's, yeah. Well, oh, yeah. We haven't talked about COVID and the choir, have we?
Right. So,
Yeah.
so, like I said, it was just about having that open door. Everybody's welcome. And we grew out of the space very quickly. Within about a few months, we went from like 8 people being there to like 60. And we were like, oh my gosh. So the pastor actually wanted to get a new location too. So we found a new place and our choir practices grew. We have now about 220 members, but every Friday we have a rotating crew of people that would show up. And I think at our largest like attendance, it was about 130 people. So
That's
130
awesome.
people coming in for their lunch break, right? I mean, not just lunch break, but I mean, people coming off the street, but people from all around at that hour to sing together. And it's a full R&B, soul, funk, jazz band, which is playing in the front yard, that kind of caliber music, playing songs that everybody remembered, right? So you talked about how did you run it? So people would come in, they'd grab a songbook, they'd get a badge. We had these little badges made, and we'd put people in sections. So like eventually, you know, we had enough people for the sopranos, we had enough people in the altos, and some of the singers have never had any experience singing, of course, and
Right.
some are stronger. And so some of the stronger ones are kind of like the lead in the section, you know, and they can help carry that. So we get everybody, kind of try to get them organized. Sometimes they don't want to move, and we're like, that's cool, you just sit with the sopranos, you're doing great. And then we start with stretching. We'd start with kind of a improvised breathing vocal warm-up. And that was just like getting present, getting mindful of your breath and your body. And then we would roll into our repertoire, which is like, you know, Bill Withers, Stevie Wonder, ballads like, you know, What a Wonderful World, and Paul Simon's Homeless, and but a lot of like uplifting songs, a lot of like supercharged, like, yeah. So yeah, it was like a religious experience for sure.
That's
It's a
awesome.
spiritual.
Yeah, it's a spiritual experience. And I mean, singing in general it is, but this is a very unique, I think, not emotionally charged, but it's I mean, I think they knew it was unique, right?
Oh,
And,
for
and,
sure. For
and when
sure.
you think about all the negative experiences they have in terms of getting services, in terms of sometimes getting fed.
Hmm.
It's hard on
Hmm.
your soul, right? To
Hmm.
go through whatever forms
Hmm.
of things you have to go through. I mean, you didn't put them through any of that. You said, "Come sing,"
No, and I mean, you don't even have to give us your name. I mean, you could be
right?
whoever you want to be. That's not even what it's about. But as people would come, I mean, I'll even back it up and say our outreach doesn't feel like outreach.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? There's no
Yeah,
like, it's just fun. It's joy. The
it's
joy,
joy.
joy is the outreach. and and when people would come in, sometimes they cry. They just cry for
Mm.
weeks. Like every Friday they'd come in and they cry. And then after a while they'd start to open up. You kind of build friends in the community, and they would open up about where they were and what their needs
Hmm.
were. And so then we'd be like, hey, well, why don't you talk to our case manager? So it started and it grew, and we are a nonprofit, but we never started with like a business plan. We didn't start this with like a meeting of people and investors. We started with just like the space and showing up, and then in real time had to figure out how to properly guide and support a person suffering mental illness, potentially addiction, trauma, um, the criminal system, the courts, I mean, all sorts of things. So, but the way we go about that, and the way we can, back to that question about how did you build trust,
Hmm.
any kind of step towards recovery is a person's choice. And when I say recovery, I'm not talking about addiction. I'm just talking about recovery of pain, recovery of your traumas. That is like a special personal journey. So we support that journey for each individual, and each individual is going to have their own special timeline, their own special like approach to that. And so we are the connector to the resources. We, out of out of needing to, we developed our own, Rolodex. That's kind of old school. We developed our own like contacts to navigate the system. And at the
Right.
time, it felt like a very broken, disconnected system. Not to get too nitty gritty, but right, like the
Yeah.
benefits are kind of managed by the county. Maybe the city oversees the laws, and elected officials are, up there smiling and taking a picture. But like, how do we move this situation? How do we change it? And I just knew, I'm gonna let you talk. I'm sorry, but I just knew
No,
that in
it's
order to
good.
make change, we had to change the perception of homelessness. We had to change
Right.
the way people looked at it. If you can look at the choir and you can see somebody that represents you, that changes your mind. Also, when people hear Patricia on the mic, nobody
Yeah.
expects the choir to be brilliant. And then you hear each individual, or you're moved by their performance, and you witness their joy, and it's life changing for the audience. It immediately breaks it down. So
Well, it's transformational for the singers, and I think it's transformational for the audience. It just requires us to shift, our perceptions, shift our biases, shift our assumptions, which are, around these issues. It's a mess, right? I mean, we're constantly being told a certain truth and reality exists, and many of us have very little experience to actually provide us information beyond our experience, as we're going about our daily life on the street. And I think this is what that's because you make them artists, and you said in one of your questions to Mike, if anyone read the beautiful article that Mike McAnally put together with some wonderful questions, Steph talks about having them breathe as part of the daily thing, and also helping them find their voice.
mhm.
And when I work with young teachers who are getting ready to teach in the public school, these are language. This is language we use. Is how can we help that 14-year-old, that 16-year-old, that 12-year-old, that 9-year-old find their voice? Because when you find your voice, you find power. And it strikes me that you've done this through the choir with a population that does not have a voice.
Well, a population that has lost their power, a
Yeah.
population that once you are homeless, um, everything shifts. Everything shifts. Imagine somebody attacks you. Okay, you're housed right now. Something terrible happens. You call the police because you're like, I've been a subject of a crime, a victim of a crime. The police, if you're unsheltered, the police aren't really likely to come. The police aren't there to protect you. The police now see you as a threat. People see at stores, people in public transit see you as a threat.
Hmm.
And there are some extreme cases you'll see on the streets, people that are really suffering, and it's hard to help them without really intense kind of in-home care, right? But there's so many people that are living in their cars. There's so many people that are working in your restaurants. There's so many people that are near homelessness because what I answered, I also love Mike's questions. What's one of the pet peeves that people get wrong about homelessness? Well, it's like unlivable wages, expensive living, that's like, those are two big things that have affected so many people in the choir. I'd say everybody in the choir. And
That's,
yeah, I mean, so anyways, I could go
so
on and
let's
on. We only have an hour right now. I'm sorry.
I know, and these topics are just so interesting to me, and I think so valuable.
Mhm.
Let's shift a little bit, and let's talk about your songs. I was struck by the songs of the sounds of the sidewalk,
Mhm.
and that's an original song. Is that true?
Yeah, that's an original song. Before choir practice every Friday, we'd have an open songwriting session. So I'm a songwriter. I play guitar. That was my journey to my own healing and recovery and finding my own voice. And so I wanted to offer that to the choir members. When it first started, I was there teaching the guitar and teaching the songwriting. But about a year in, a friend of mine, Francesca Valle, came in and she started to lead the songwriters. She's also started to teach piano, and harmonica's coming next. But and then other guitar techs started teaching guitar. But every Friday, you had the option to go in the morning. You come get your coffee, come get a donut or whatever. And then you could go to songwriting, you could go to guitar. We're sponsored by Taylor Guitars. They're very, very, very supportive. We had a bunch of Taylors to use. Songwriting was about expression, and there were sometimes prompts or little recipes to making a song. And she would give them, you know, a pass, like some chords, right? And they'd write a melody to, you know, a progression. And then she and I would sit together, and I would kind of listen. I'd listen to the melody and the chords. And of course I felt it as like a funk soul, like united rainbow, right? Like, and there's something about that kind of music that's like if you see the audience, they didn't show you in the America's Got Talent clip, everybody stood up and was dancing. They gave us like 4 or 5 standing ovations, but they were feeling it, because it's that you know, I don't know, it's that A minor groove, you know, it's like that, like, yeah, like everybody's grooving. And so
Right.
that's how I felt that song. And that was close. That was how they felt it. I always bring back if I do some change to the song, but I try to stay super close to their melody. If I make any change, I check with them. And, so I grooved it up a little bit. I changed a few chords, and then there you go.
So I think that ownership of the song is just a huge part of this, and I mean
Totally.
they really feel it. So if you have 120, 150, 100, 120 coming per rehearsal, how did you decide who gets to go on America's Got Talent?
So, right, that's a good thing.
This is a choir director. You know, who do you let go on tour? Who do you leave home? Right?
Well, yeah, and I remember the producer for America's Got Talent. We kept on calling and trying to increase the number, and he was like, "How many people are coming?" So, everybody was welcome to choir, and if people wanted to perform in the performance ensemble of voices, there was a secondary rehearsal where we would work on more technique, more harmony, more
Right.
of the things. And at that point, you know, they were asked to agree to a certain code of conduct, like,
Right.
you know, we're on time and we're present, we're sober, the show must go on, you know, certain things, kind of the coaching. And how much did you learn, you know, through the craft of being a performer and an artist and a musician? I can't think of a better way to kind of re-enter into society through, like, you know, the practical life skills that you've got to master to do a gig, to do a show.
That's right. That's right.
So there was a little more asked of that performance choir, but it was open to all if they wanted to come and participate in that. And so in the performance choir, we had about 60 people in that would, you know, kind of rotate around, 60 individuals. So, of course, doing America's Got Talent, everybody was super pumped. So everyone started to attend those performance choir rehearsals. And I think we had about 50 people on stage for that performance. Yeah.
Well, and I thought it was funny. Simon made a comment before the clip started that I showed. It was on the clip, but before I cut in he said, "Oh, it's a choir. It's a lot of people." And I'm like, "That's not a big choir. I've seen it, right?" I just think it's funny. His perception, of course, is that's a lot of people, but our perception is actually,
well,
we deal with bigger numbers all the time.
The more the merrier. I mean,
that's right.
It's like, let's get together and sing in a choir. My gosh, that just sounds so good, so good. And I have to say, last week now that we're in COVID, and I don't know if we're gonna have time to really talk about this, but we moved all of our workshops online. We got a generous donation and raised some money, and we bought 75 laptops for our choir members. What you see on America's Got Talent after that Golden Buzzer performance are like 2 more performances I think we did on TV. And those required not only, like, I mean, you know, learning their parts and doing all that, but some had to learn technology. Some had to, like, learn how to use a laptop and learn how to absorb and learn music through a Zoom session. So it was, last year was crazy. I can't believe we all survived. I mean, it's just was so intense. But
so that was, when I saw that they're all on separate things. That's a virtual performance.
So some of us were live, and the other choir members had to learn their part and then go into a studio.
Right. Yeah.
and record their part in front of a blue screen, a green screen, red, blue screen,
Yeah.
green screen. And they had to look into like, there's 3 cameras on them. There's a choreographer. They didn't have any normal, there was nothing normal about being on America's Got Talent during COVID. And then, so they had four times to sing it through, twice as a dress rehearsal. The third time was recorded and the fourth time was recorded, but they would use the fourth take. So they had to like move, but like not get their hands out of the box. They had to look at the camera. They had to know their part. They had to learn how to sing by listening to their part, to the music. And it was such a unreal. I can't believe what we learned and what we accomplished. But no,
So
yeah,
we'll see that on Heroes. Heroes is one of those.
yes,
Yeah. So we're going to show Heroes, which is a piece by
David Bowie.
thank you, David Bowie, and arrangement by somebody. Maybe was it arranged by the choir?
It was arranged. I worked on the arrangements with their music director.
Yeah. And so I wondered how it was filmed, and so now I know that helps me out because I was going.
Yeah. So the people that weren't live on stage, they used movie special effects for the first time on television and TV, on America's Got Talent, on Us, and some of the other acts. So they hologrammed the choir in. Which
It's pretty cool.
It's pretty
cool. Yeah. Hey, I want to. We're getting kind of close to the end here, and I don't want to not talk about your new album.
Thank you.
I've been listening to it a lot over the last 3 or 4 days since our meeting on Wednesday and a little bit before, and I'm just loving it. Your approach is so beautiful. Tell our guests a little bit. What are are there 10 tracks on that? Do I have that number right?
I think so. Yeah, some of my favorites. Over the last couple years, I've been maintaining this steady at this venue in San Diego called the Westgate Hotel, and it's a really intimate room, plush, comfy hotel chairs and a piano and the chandelier and a bartender in the white jacket who brings you a drink, like all the things. And my husband, who plays upright bass, we would have a rotation of pianists that would join us, and I would do this repertoire. I would do these different songs. And from that gig, we wanted to record like our favorites from those events, from those gigs. So the session happened with the piano player, Josh Nelson, who played with the late Natalie Cole. And the guitarist on the record is Anthony Wilson, who plays with Diana Krall. And who else is on the record? I mean, it's just an incredible moment for me as a musician that these are my friends.
Who's your flugelhorn? Your flugelhorn player was, I thought, just
yes.
Beautiful.
Yes, he plays trumpet and flugelhorn. His name's Chris Lawrence. So right. Yeah, that they were available, open, joined the session, that they had fun working with them. I felt like Frank Sinatra in on a stool, like in the studio, getting to like enjoy the experience. I didn't play guitar on the record. I sang, and I was actually coming off of being really, really ill, and I had like pneumonia and bronchitis. And in fact, I'm going to go get tested and see. I may have had COVID at the time, or around that time I was recovering. But I thought I was going to throw away all my vocals because I'd had a sore throat and I couldn't breathe, and there was zero pressure on me to deliver because they were like, you can re-record them later. We'll just get the tracks. And I ended up keeping like 80% of those vocals because the moment and the magic was, you just can't recreate that. And so yeah, that was recorded live over 2 days. It's called So in Love, and it's got some great songs on it.
We played a clip of it right at the beginning, and I encourage all of you to buy the album by all means and support Steph's work. And these aren't easy times to be an artist. Your opportunities for gigging are significantly less than normal, as your husband will probably attest with. He's playing in the front yard right now. Hey, quick word about your husband. He's a professional bassist. Do I have that correct?
Yes. Rob Thorson is an educator, performer, has many, many years experience. And yeah, he's fabulous. He's great.
2 artists living together. Congratulations.
Living together during a kitchen remodel.
Oh, COVID and a kitchen remodel. That we are a few horses short of the apocalypse there. That's that's impressive, impressive work. Well, you know, artists often do marry artists because I guess we're hanging around each other when we're working and so
I think
forth. And
you get each other, and you understand that the music comes first for each person. You know, sometimes in a
that's right.
relationship, you know, I mean, I put him first, of course, but if I'm like, hey, let's do something, and he's like, hold on, I gotta go write this thing. I'm like, okay, go do it. We both understand that of each other. I think that's the other piece, right?
That acknowledgement of the passion is a big deal. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I want to finish up with just a little talk about how the your thoughts. I think you are now officially an expert in the country on how the arts can be used for social justice
For
and for
sure. Yes.
making social change. And I think you probably have as we've talked a little bit about it, but I want to address the issue specifically. This is really, I mean, didn't John say there were around 28 choirs in the country right now that were dealing with people who are unsheltered?
Yes, yes. So over the last, I mean, there's actually a choir in Chicago that's been around for about 25 years.
Mm,
And every city deals with homelessness in a different way, like their own unique way. So our organization, or our choir, um, created its own case management. We created an advocacy department where we coach and train choir members how to tell their story in front
mm,
of elected officials, having their power, and to tell and talk about what's going on, and then all the music workshops and all that. But we also built our choir and organization with people living unsheltered. So over half of my staff are people that are currently homeless or were homeless when we met. And it's unique too that we became such an in-demand performance ensemble. I think that has to do with me and my husband a lot, like where we were in life. I had just finished my 4th album with this Grammy-winning producer, was going to be touring, took a break, and started this choir. And so as far as musicianship or opportunities or studios to utilize or things like that, like that's all available and around. So, but again, you have to first create this experience in this space, that is trust, and building confidence, consistent, and in this space people continue to come back and continue to work on music. And so the music that we created got better. We just kept, just
right.
like anything, right? Like you go from the garage, and now you've got a studio, you're moving up, and you kind of understand what you're doing a little bit more. But the singing is life changing, just one-on-one, and performing and doing performances is the way that we change the perception. And it's the way that
Mm,
we tackle a lot of things. We generate donations, we create opportunities for choir members to feel empowered and to feel
that's right.
better. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So that's what I hear is the arts have given a way to bring power back to these voices. And to a certain extent, you've lent a little of your power as well because you had a certain connection in the arts
Mhm,
community, and
mhm.
you were able to give that to them. But then the power became theirs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the power was always theirs. The power has
Right.
always been there for them, but it's been buried through um, so much trauma and so much pain and just rejection and terrible things that I don't know if I could survive.
Mm,
I don't know that I mean, I've gone through some hardship, but um, I still had one or two, I always had family that loved me, or a space to be, or, when we didn't have a place to go or something. And one of our choir members, he's a great singer. His name's Willie. And Willie was homeless from the time he was 8. And he lost his parents. And he set out at 8 years old to look for his parents, and basically came up on the street and spent much of his life being angry, hurt, confused. Um, he never, I don't know quite what his education was, but I know that reading, he didn't learn to read really. And there were so many things that he wasn't provided, he
mm,
didn't get to experience. And singing with the choir, being a part of the community, he became less angry, and he just, it's warmed him, it shifted him, it's a place to be, it's a place to belong, and a place to sing and have fun, and that's who he is. So I mean, we're there for a lot of people experiencing homelessness. Of course, not everybody's going to come in, because not everybody's, you know, really available
That's
to
right.
that, or maybe interested in music, but a lot of people are, from maybe they want to be a singer, to they just enjoy it, to they just want to sit in the back and watch, you know, and be a part of that. So I hope our big goal is to have more space, and so we can welcome more people.
Well, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for being with us. Best of luck. I feel like we're in the middle of your chapter on this,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to see, what happens.
Well, to the point about the arts too, is that the arts play this vital role in a person, um, like their soul coming to life, you know? And that piece is necessary if the person or the individual is going to go towards housing, go towards recovery, go towards um, education, or an appointment, or whatever, anything that would move you, you know, to this next place. So the arts are everything. And
That's
you
right.
know, my friend calls them, she says, we are the second responders.
Hmm.
The first responders go into the burning building, right? And we need them.
Right.
But the artists and the art community is what's healing and helping us get through the trauma.
Second responders. I'm going to write that down. That's really great. Often we have these conversations about the importance of the arts, and we're always trying to make this case that we don't always deal with fundamental, basic levels of safety,
Hmm.
food or shelter. But in your case, I think you might be a first responder, and
We are sometimes first responders.
that's right. That's right.
But
Well,
yeah,
I want to bring people out by and I want to end with a performance of Heroes.
sure.
And if you wanna set this up while I grab it, I'll be ready in about 10 seconds here.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. Sending you a lot of love from my heart to you. And we actually just made a new video that's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. We're going to share it on all of our social media pages. So please follow us at Voices of Our City Choir, and you'll see this beautiful video we just filmed. And but this one you're about to see is Heroes, and this was an incredible thing they did with the set. They have all these words all over us and around us, and actually Willie is in this clip. Willie's the African American taller gentleman on stage. He's the one who's singing and looking great. And yeah, I'm so proud of the choir members. You have to do a lot of grueling rehearsals to marry the live and the pre-recorded, and be
Hmm.
ready for this show. So I'm really proud of what they accomplished. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Thank you, everyone. Heroes, Voices of Our City Choir.
I wish you could swim like dolphins can swim. Though nothing will keep us together. We can be there forever and ever. We can be heroes just for one day. I will be king, and you will be queen. nothing